Two areas where dentists experience the most issues are their hands and their neck. And there's something that's common between these areas that is leading to the development of these issues. On this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, we're going to explore what this is and what can be done about it. We're going to cue our introduction and we're going to dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, exercisers, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Exercise for Life Studios, where we believe that your health is your most valuable asset. And the single best thing that you can do to both boost and protect this asset is exercise. Specifically, exercise is geared towards building the health and function of your muscles. We are your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
And this week we are talking to dentists. If you're a dentist, we need you to listen up right now because we know that two of the most common areas of your body where you experience issues are your hands and your neck. And there's something that is very common between these two areas that is leading directly to these issues. Today we want to talk about what that is and give you a plan to help it get resolved.
That's right. And we're not just talking to general dentists. This is also applied to anyone that is working in someone else's mouth as a profession. So we'll call it like just dental professionals. This can be prosthodontists, endodontists, orthodontists, pediatric dentistry, and then also oral surgeons are big ones. So here's the thing. You guys are digging in people's mouths for hours a day. And I know this firsthand because I actually have me and Charlie have 4 dental professionals in our immediate family. My mother was a dental hygienist. My father, a general dentist. Our brother-in-law is a endodontist, and my sister is an orthodontist. So we hear about this, we've explored this idea so many times, but it's interesting as we talk about it, there's one common thing that happens in the dental professional. We're going to talk about why so that you can get a fuller understanding and what you can do about addressing this, because we know that the normal ways of addressing the issues that are developing in your neck and the spiciness in your muscles and the tightness, numbness in your hands, those things aren't really working, which is why you have to keep doing all the things you're doing. But we also need to acknowledge that these stressors that you're putting on your body in the dental field are repetitive and they're all the time. Like if you think about your day, whether you work 30 or 40 hours a week, how many of those hours are you doing the same exact motion in the same exact position? If we asked anyone, like if I said, Charlie, you're going to walk for 30 hours a week, people would be like, wow, that's a lot of wear and tear on your feet and your hips and your walking muscles. That's kind of like what dentists do, but in a different way with their arm and their posture and their neck and their hands and their wrists.
Yeah, Julie, that's a really great analogy because when we think about the stresses that might be happening to a dentist throughout the day, it's not like they are lifting heavy boxes. It's not like they're having to lift the patient's head. I mean, from a physical exertion lifting standpoint, there's really not that much going on, but the motions that they are doing often, they are doing consistently, and they are doing for really long periods of time. And they are these really fine motor control motions with their hands, keeping the rest of their body in very specific positions. And guess what? That is extremely taxing on the body. In part because, look, if you're lifting boxes or you are, moving bags of pea gravel or, doing something where you are actually having, lifting a lot of weight, a lot of mass, you're going to be using really big muscle groups to help you out. And so in some ways, it makes those activities kind of less stressful on the body versus if you are having to hold this really little tiny instrument and keep your body in a very specific position, your head, your neck, your shoulders, everything like that, you have these really finely tuned but small muscles of the fingers, of the hands, of the wrists, of the neck that need to maintain the position and maintain your motor control and everything like that for hours at a time. That is extremely stressful, that is extremely taxing, and that is one of the predominant reasons why we see so many dentists have so many issues with their hands, with their neck, traveling into their shoulders, into their low back, not because they are trying to lift a lot of weight, but rather because they are trying to use these muscles that by nature are smaller, are likely less strong than, say, like your glutes or your deltoids or something like that. And they're doing it for hours and hours and hours, week after week after week.
Yes. And now, one thing that I think we don't often realize anywhere in the body, hands, neck, elbow, all included, the ones that get stressed out in the dental field, is that when we have muscles or areas of our body that are stressed or overused, it causes muscle inhibition. It makes muscles not work as well. And when you hear that, you're probably like, wait a second. I'm feeling a whole bunch of tightness and tingling and numbness and dysfunction. Like, it doesn't feel strong. It doesn't feel stable. You know, I'm having to do extra just to get my precision in there. And those are actually signs. Those are actually responses to muscle inhibition. So when we think about the stressors of the dentistry practice, one of the biggest things that also escalates the stress and the overuse of these muscles is not only the repetition that we just talked about, it's not only the precision, the tiny motions that we're having to control and the odd postures that we're having to maintain, but a lot of dentists use tools that have some vibration to them. And so when there's a vibration in your hand or anytime, anywhere in your body, really, we have a power plate that does your whole body, but dentists are known for using little handheld vibrational tools, and this adds extra stress to the muscles of the hand, the wrist, the elbow, the arm, all the way up to the neck and in your posture as well. So that is another reason why we see so much stress happening in the upper extremity of our dentists. But what we want to highlight is that your symptoms, the tightness, the carpal tunnel, the numbness, the tingling, all the lack of control that you feel in your hand because of the fatigue, a lot of that is caused by muscle inhibition. And this is a concept that not a lot of people are even aware of, because we can't feel muscle inhibition. We feel, well, until you get your muscles tested by an MET specialist, we feel the symptoms of muscle inhibition. We feel the body's protection from the muscle inhibition, which is that tightness, which is that tingling, which is that numbness, that pain, that discomfort. That's your body protecting you, saying, holy moly, we have this huge stressor that you keep returning to every single day. We never have time to recover. And now we have inhibited muscles that aren't working well, and we need to protect them. Because if we expose them, then it's going to lead to further and further injury.
Yeah, Julie, you bring up a really good point about the vibrational equipment, and I want to touch on that and just highlight why it can be so detrimental when used over the long term, okay? One of the proclaimed benefits of different vibrational tools is the idea that, well, they can, through the vibration, get your muscles contracting a lot more than they normally would, all right? And in small dosages, that sounds like it could be beneficial. Hey, you know, the more your muscles contract, like the stronger they could potentially get. The problem is when you're doing it for an extended period of time, if you have muscles that are already more fatigued, already more vulnerable, then that vibration, that extra contraction, that can become too much, okay? Vibration, in a very basic sense, disrupts neuromuscular function, okay? It directly affects neuromuscular function. When the system is sound and the system is solid, the system meaning the body, it can have the potential to have a beneficial effect, okay? But if there's any kind of metaphorical crack in the foundation, okay, if there's anything that isn't perfectly sound within the system, that vibration, that's just going to draw it out. That is going to amplify the crack in the foundation. That is going to amplify the different weaknesses and the different vulnerabilities in the system, okay? And so because of that, you're using these tools for your job that you need to be using, but the tools of your job at the same time are also breaking down your body. And it's not until you can get the metaphorical cracks in your foundation cleaned up that your body will then be able to tolerate using these vibrational, the tools that you need without it just furthering kind of the state of your body in more and more of a downward spiral. And so that is a piece that isn't often discussed about these tools, because yes, they are needed for your job, but if there's already kind of compromised aspects of your system, it's going to amplify those compromised aspects of your system.
Definitely. And now, as you're listening to this, we are absolutely not telling you that, stop using your drill,
Right. Yeah,
right?
not
because
saying
that
that.
would be like me saying, like, Charlie, you do MAT. It's a lot on our hands and body to be testing muscles all day long. I would never say, hey, you should stop doing MAT. No, that's the way that we support our family. That's our passion. That's really our interest. That's what we love doing. But the goal being is that to have a system in place, to have a process in place that helps you handle the stressors of your job. And dentistry just happens to be one of those professions that has a very specific repetitive stress that we see across the board, really, really challenging and taxing the bodies of people in the dental field. In fact, when you don't have a system in place to help you recover and put you back together between your long days of working in dental surgery, what we find is that it becomes a big mess of symptom management. And I remember even in middle school watching, I had no idea what MAT was or what I was doing with my life, but I watched my dad wrap his hands like so tight that his hands would turn purple. And I thought, oh, I guess that's just what dentists do. Like, well, actually, I thought, I don't know, maybe that I might have like a weird dad, like this is just how he does it, and he had like 50 tools like on his TV stand that he would like work his arms and hands when he was watching TV at night and things like that. And then as I got older and my sister became an orthodontist, my brother-in-law is now an endodontist, and my mom is a dental hygienist, I realized like this is not uncommon. This is normal. In fact, I remember last year my sister struggling with her carpal tunnel, and she literally was on the phone all Christmas break trying to up her disability insurance because she was really worried. She saw my dad had to retire early because of this. And so we know that the symptoms are real. We're not trying to minimize them, but we do know that if you are stuck in the cycle of symptom management, of just getting rid of the tightness, getting rid of the tingliness, we know that there's a layer underneath that needs to be addressed. And I think let's dive into that more, because that layer is the muscle inhibition that repetitive, stressful motion that you have to do for your job is bringing about. And what we try to do with MAT is not necessarily get rid of the tightness, get rid of the tingliness, get rid of the numbness and all the funky stuff, although those are common responses, but we want to make sure that the muscles are functioning properly so that your body isn't having to set up as many protective mechanisms. And remember, those protective mechanisms that your body sets up are the tightness, is the instability in your hand, is that thumb pain that's never going away. That's how our body, that's the only way really our body can communicate with us that things are not okay, is to set up signals to your brain saying, hey, my hand's not feeling good today. Hey, another day, my hand's not feeling good. It's still numb, it's still tingling, it's still not functioning properly. And so we know whether you have something diagnosed, whether you don't have something diagnosed, whether you think it's from a bulging disc in your neck now, we still know that structural changes, non-structural changes, diagnosed things and not diagnosed things all have inhibited muscles surrounding them, and that's why they're getting stressed out.
Yeah, Julie, it's a really, really key point, is this idea that muscle inhibition is the thing that for many people is driving, if not just part, the majority of the symptoms that they are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And it's no different with what we see with the dentist clients that we work with as well. So the question is, okay, well, how do you go about addressing or solving or resolving this muscle inhibition? And that's really where muscle activation techniques comes into play. The whole system, the whole process of MAT is to identify where in your body this muscle inhibition is. And it often is not in the same areas where the symptoms are. Like you were saying, Julie, your body sets up symptoms to let you know that the inhibition is somewhere in your body, but that does not often set up symptoms to let you know exactly where the inhibition is. So through the MAT process, we are able to identify where the inhibition is within your system, and then go about addressing the muscles that are not contracting well, that are inhibited, get them contracting better, progress their strength, progress their function, progress their endurance capabilities, so you can continue to not just do the work that you enjoy doing, but do the other activities in life that you enjoy doing without having it take such a toll on your body. MAT has such a profound impact on people's abilities to keep doing those things. That's why we're such a huge proponent of it, especially for people who are using their body in very repetitive manners, and it's starting to take an extremely negative toll on their life.
That's right. If you think about like a professional athlete, they are, they support their families and they support their life by having this high performance body. And if you think about an athlete, you probably think of, okay, they're on TV doing their athletic stuff. But off TV, what are they doing? They're getting their muscles maintenance. They're getting recovery in. They're doing all these things because their career is reliant on their body being a high performance machine. With dentistry, it's kind of the same thing. Your career, your ability to support your family is dependent on your arm, your hand, your elbow, your shoulder being this high performance machine, because it is. That is the driver of an entire dental practice, is the ability for the dentist or whatever specialty you're in to be able to be functioning, to be able to perform the dental procedures that you're needing to do. And so we want to frame it in that way where it's like, hey, we have this high performance machine, which is you. You are the dentist. You are the high performance machine. And now we have to start treating it just like that, just like a high performance athlete would do. We're dependent on the muscles, the joints, the tendons, the ligaments, the discs operating and being supported properly. And that's what MAT tries to do, which is return muscles to normal function even when they're being regularly stressed. So just like an athlete regularly stresses his or her body, they also regularly get it maintenance, get it tuned up. That's why so many professional teams have an MAT specialist on hand. But people don't actually think about hands and wrists and elbows as having muscles that need to get tuned up. In fact, I was talking to my brother-in-law. I was like, well, the 50 muscles of the hands, they probably should be serviced on you regularly. And he's like, oh, I never thought about 50 muscles in my hands. But as an MAT specialist, we test through 50 muscles just in your hand and in your wrist. And we never think about them because it's not like a bicep. It's not like a delt. It's not like the bigger muscle groups that we think about working in the gym. But still, any area of your body that has motion, that has mobility, that has function, has muscles controlling it. And in fact, hands and feet are one of the biggest places where people forget that, hey, I don't just need support here. I don't need to just brace here. I don't need to just get an orthotic or a wrap. I actually need to also work on the muscle function in this hand. And we know that if you're just doing exercises, a lot of times that can kind of stress it out more because you're exercising it all day. But what we need to do is return muscles from an inhibited state back to an active state so your body can start taking away all by itself those protective mechanisms of all that discomfort that you're feeling each and every day.
Now you might be thinking, okay, well, can I just start lifting weights? Can't I just, start getting stronger and that help to resolve the issue? And there are two big issues with this, okay? The first big issue is kind of like we said, we were talking about in the beginning. Your job is not requiring you to lift a large amount of weight. It's not requiring you to lift really heavy things. So it's very unlikely that your actual physical strength is the limiter or is the contributor to what you are experiencing symptomatically on a day-to-day basis. More than likely, your body has plenty of strength to do what it needs to do. What it doesn't have is the function to continue to do what it needs to do, okay? Which leads into the next point, is that if you are just doing strengthening exercises without building the function through MAT, then you are just strengthening the compensations that your body already has. And the reason why you're having issues to begin with is because of these compensations. And so to just go about strengthening, to just trying to solve this by, lifting weights and everything like that, might you see some improvement? Possibly. Definitely possible, okay? There are very few times that I can think of off the top of my head where it'd be like, okay, yeah, no, it would not be beneficial to get stronger. Like getting stronger overall is going to be a beneficial thing, right? But if you're really wanting to address what is more than likely going on within your body, then it needs to be a step that's actually before the strengthening from a traditional perspective, and that is addressing the muscle inhibition, improving the function of the muscle, and that is where MAT comes into play. Again, you are not trying to lift really heavy things throughout your job, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I just don't have the physical strength in my hand to lift the instruments anymore. That's likely not the case. It may feel like your hand isn't functioning well enough to lift the instruments anymore. And again, that is a function thing. And if you just try to address a function issue by trying to get the muscles stronger, your brain is going to default to using the muscles that are already strong and are already working well and get those muscles stronger, again, just furthering the compensation. So that's why we are so heavy on MAT when it comes to issues that so many dentists experience, is because at a very kind of primary foundational level, there's likely some muscle dysfunction going on. It's likely some muscle inhibition going on that is contributing either in part, small or large, or entirely to what the dentist is experiencing symptomatically. And by using the MAT process to address that dysfunction, now all of a sudden, the things that felt like they were limited by strength don't feel that way anymore. And when you go and you do your strengthening exercises, now you can actually build the strength in the ways that you are wanting to build it and be able to use it within your dental practice on a daily basis.
You're right, Charlie. When we think about strengthening the muscles of the hands, we can think about the physical strength, like building, with weight training and things like that, or even like physical therapy, rehab type exercises, but nothing except MAT that we've seen has really addressed the neurological function, the connection, the function piece. And so that's why we find that MAT is so powerful. And we really wanted to bring this episode to you, especially if you're a dentist, because a lot of dentists, including my own family, didn't even know what MAT was. And when they experience it, it is such a game changer in their practice, including my father, who had to retire very, very early from his career due to dysfunction in his hands. And so I always like to think like, I'm the embarrassed daughter, and my dad told me I had to tell all the dentists about all the MAT because of how powerful it was for even his hands. So make sure, if you are not currently linked up with a muscle activation technique specialist, you find one in your area. If you're here in the Chicagoland area, we are located in Schaumburg, right near the Woodfield Mall. We would love to help you out and help your body manage better the constant, intense stressors of your job being a dentist, so that you can keep doing the work that you love and the work that supports your life and your family.
So to get started with your MAT assessment and book that time with us, all you have to do is go to matschaumburg.com. There's a big green button that says Get Started, and you can just click that and see our availability and book your initial consultation and assessment with us to get your body assessed and figure out where you may have these inhibited muscles that are contributing to what you're experiencing every single day. And while you're online, head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to us, and leave us a rating and review. It helps people find our podcast when they're looking for information on exercise and they're looking for information on health. So if you found value in this conversation today, let us know by leaving us that 5-star rating and review. And if you know any dentist, this goes without saying, but share this episode with them. Seriously, it can be not just a change for them on their day-to-day basis, but a change for the trajectory of their career, trajectory of their life, trajectory of their family's lives once they start feeling better on a day-to-day basis. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. We always appreciate it. Have a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.